What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to open 3 envelopes and we're going to see what we got. I'm going to go with either vintage baseball or football, possibly basketball. I did send some of those out recently, so let's just open them up, see what we got. Okay. This first return is from former Chicago Cub John Boccabella on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And he was also a Montreal Expo, as the card indicates. So John Boccabella, or Boccabella, probably is how that's pronounced. Boccabella is from California. He was a high school player that later went on to Santa Clara University. He played for Santa Clara and actually appeared in the 1962 College World Series. However, they lost to the Michigan Wolverines that year. He was then drafted after that season in '62 and joined the Chicago Cubs minor league system. He went through the minor league systems relatively fast, as you can see. This is a 65 tops or 64 rookie stars card of him. And he got a liking with a September call-up in 1963 to the Cubs as a first baseman. Well, Leo DeRocher kind of took a liking to him in 1966, and the uniqueness about Boccabella is that he actually learned how to catch at the major league level, meaning he was drafted as a first baseman, but he saw that his abilities would be best used trying to be a defensive help on the diamond as well as an offensive help. He never really was a starter per se throughout his entire career. I mean, I guess you could say after he left the Cubs and played for the Expos, he got a pretty good shot at being a starter, everyday player, but the majority of the time that he played with the Cubs, the most games he appeared in were 75 games in one season. Most of the other time he was spent either in the minor leagues with the Cubs or just very sparingly. So the unique thing is he learned how to catch after making his major league debut, which is really unique. So after the 1968 season, he spent most of the year in the Cubs minor league system, and the Montreal Expos took Boccabella with the expansion draft in 1968. Well, that more or less made him a major leaguer, I guess you would say. He spent time, between the minors and the majors with the Cubs, the Expos that year. But he was never really a starter, those years. Well, finally, at the age of 32, in 1973, he finally appeared in 118 games that year, where he batted .233 and hit 7 home runs. He only played one more year with the San Francisco Giants. He was traded after the '73 season to the Giants for a pitcher. And after the '74 season, it appears that he no longer played in the major leagues. So after retiring from baseball, he moved back to California and got a job working for a gas and electric company, from which he retired in the 1990s. So thank you, Mr. Boccabella. Really appreciate your adding your autograph to my collection. Okay, so this next one is from former Los Angeles Dodger Dick Tracewski and Detroit Tiger on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you grew up in Detroit or a fan of the Detroit Tigers, you most likely know who Dick Tracewski is. He was on the coaching staff of the Detroit Tigers for a very, very long time with Sparky Anderson. As a matter of fact, I believe he retired the year Sparky Anderson retired. When Sparky retired, Dick retired in 1995 or 6. So that's how long of a tenure this guy had in coaching in baseball. So we'll go back a little bit and we'll talk about before he was a coach. So Dick Tracewski, a Pennsylvania native, played for the Los Angeles Dodgers, although he was originally drafted by the Brooklyn Dodgers out of high school. He spent many years in the minor leagues before finally getting his break at 27 years old as an infielder with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So he primarily played second base and shortstop. He was a backup utility type player. Although in 1963 and 64, he appeared in 104 games and 106 games, which is quite a bit for a utility guy. He stayed with the Dodgers through the 1965 season until after the 65 season, he was traded to the Detroit Tigers for pitcher Phil Reagan. He spent from 1966 to 1969 with the Tigers in the utility backup second base shortstop role. But the cool thing about all of his time with the Dodgers and the Tigers, he actually appeared in 2 World Series with the Dodgers and 1 World Series, the 1968 series, with the Detroit Tigers. Well, after the 1969 season, he retired and he got into coaching. And he started coaching the minor league affiliate of the Detroit Tigers. And he did that for a couple seasons until 1972 when he joined the coaching staff of the Detroit Tigers. Well, from 1972 to 1995, he served in various capacities with the Detroit Tigers, including a couple stints as their manager, as an interim manager. He managed briefly, like I said, between managers as an interim manager. He also managed for a brief stint in 1989 when Sparky Anderson had to step away from the team for health reasons. So, in closing, thank you, Mr. Tracewski, for signing my cards. Very happy to add those to the collection as well. All right. This next one, actually, all right. This actually would have been one of Tracewski's teammates, and that is former Los Angeles Dodger Joe Moeller on 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not too original with the variety here, but this was the only 4 cards I had of him. But in addition to that, he sent a copy of a testimonial card of his. And it folds out, talks about his testimonial and his baseball career, front and back, and that is also signed. So, very cool additional freebie that I was not expecting to get. So let me tell you a little about Joe Moeller. Well, here's the cool thing about Joe Moeller, and this might just show up sometime in a future trivia contest. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Joe Moeller was the youngest starting pitcher in Dodgers history. Let's think about that for a second. Of all the great pitchers that have went through the Dodgers system, Joe Moeller was 19 years and 2 months of age when he made his professional debut as a pitcher for the Dodgers. How cool is that? Well, Moeller was drafted out of high school, it appears, and spent 2 years in the minors, 1961 and part of 1962. Well, in 1961, his first season in the minors, in Class C, Class A, and Triple A, he went a combined 20 wins and 9 losses with a 2.39 ERA. Well, the following year, he only appeared in 7 games in 1962 and went 2-1 before he was called up to the Dodgers. Well, for the Dodgers that year, he made his debut, as I mentioned, as a 19-year-old and went 6-5 in 19 games pitched, 15 of which that he started. Well, after the 62 season, he was sent back down to the minor leagues, not to return until 1964. Well, in 1964, he was penciled in as one of the starters for the Dodgers rotation. Well, unfortunately, he had 7 wins and 13 losses that year, and he found himself again in 1965 back in AAA. Well, he spent most of the time in AAA trying to find himself as a starter, but in 1966, when spring training broke, he got a job in the bullpen. So he converted in 1966 from starter to long reliever. He only started 8 games that year, and he went 2-4 with a 2.5 ERA, which is pretty good for a reliever. Well, the following year, he found himself again in AAA, and only appearing in 6 games at the major leagues in 67. Well, 68 was more of the same. However, he was back to being a starter in 68, and he went 15-9 in AAA, and here he is at only 25 years old. Well, he got called up to the majors that same year, and he only appeared in 3 more games in the 1968 season. Well, going into the 69 season, which appears to be pretty close to probably his best season, he made the team again, made the bullpen, and he went 1-0 with a 3.3 ERA. Well, he stuck the next year in 1970, and he went 7-9 with a 3.9 ERA. 1971, he made 28 game appearances, and he went 2-4 with a 3.8 ERA. Well, after the 71 season, the Dodgers did not renew his contract, despite having pretty solid years as a reliever. He signed on with the San Diego Padres, new franchise basically, and he did not get a chance to make their major league roster, which is kind of surprising because they weren't much of a team then. And he spent the entire 72 season in AAA. Well, going into 1973, he was headed back to San Diego's AAA, but the Phillies decided to pick up his contract. I don't know if he got released or he got traded, but nonetheless, he spent the rest of the 73 season in the minor leagues. So his last seasons in the majors were 1971. So after his career, he got into scouting, and according to his Wikipedia page, I don't know how accurate this still is, he still is an advanced scout for the Miami Marlins. In closing, thank you, Mr. Moeller, for sending that extra freebie. Thank you for signing those 4. Thank you, Mr. Tracewski, for signing. And thank you, Mr. Boccabella, for signing as well. I'm going to hopefully track down Billy Cowan and ask him to finish that card off for me. So look for that in a future episode. And as always, thanks for watching. Look forward to your comments below.